What's up, fam? I'm back, and I'm back with some. I'm not gonna say breaking news, but I'm back with some news and some information that I think everybody needs to know. First of all, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's staying safe. I hope everybody's being smart. I hope everybody is um, doing what they need to do to protect themselves and their families, their homes, their neighborhoods, their businesses, whatever the case may be. So let's move on into this. Let's get right into what's going on and the information that I want to bring you. Now, the first thing that, and yes, as you can see in the title, we are going to talk about the NFAC, and we're also going to talk about what happened, some of the stuff that happened in Louisville on yesterday. But before we get into that, I want to get into something else that I need to put out there and that you need to know about so you can know everything that's going on, because you need to know what's going on around you. You need to be made aware of everything and not just what folk want you to know. You need to know everything that's going on, not just what certain folk want you to know. Okay? And it's my job to make sure that you know everything. I don't care anything about the hate comments. I don't care anything about, folks say that I'm hating because I'm bringing the news to you and because I'm letting you know what's really going on and because I'm telling you the truth. I don't care a thing about people saying that I'm hating. Okay, well, I'm hating. But if hating means that I protect my community, I protect foundational Black Americans. If that's what hating is, then I'm hating. And I will continue to hate. So, yeah, y'all, I'm waiting for this stuff to load so that we can get into this and get to talking about all the different stuff that's going on. Because there's a lot of stuff going on. And you got to understand that Trump is busy. Trump is real busy right now. Trump is busy, and all the folks that he support and all the folks that, look up to Trump, all of that is, these folks, they busy. So let's get into what's going on. And if I sound a little different, it's because I'm sipping today. Yes, I'm in my cups today. What was it? Last Wednesday was my birthday. And I celebrated my birthday this weekend, and I'm still kind of celebrating my birthday. But what's going on is just as important as my birthday. So even though I'm in the midst of still celebrating, I got to bring y'all this information. All right, the first thing we want to get into is I want to read a little bit to y'all from an article from the Seattle Times. Okay? And it says, federal judge blocks Seattle law banning crowd control weapons as city braces for tumult. And this was July 25th, 2020. In an emergency hearing Friday night, a federal judge blocked Seattle's new law prohibiting police from using tear gas, blast balls, and similar weapons. Tear gas, blast balls, rubber bullets, all of that kind of stuff. And similar weapons, even as it was scheduled to go into effect Sunday. And as the city awaits a potentially tumultuous weekend of protests with federal agents in the area. U.S. District Judge James Robart granted a request from the federal government to block the new law, which the Seattle City Council passed unanimously last month. So the Seattle Council passed this law unanimously last month, but the federal government stepped in and asked for this judge, this U.S. District Judge James Robart, to block this new law. The temporary restraining order filed Saturday in U.S. District Court will expire in 2 weeks. The U.S. Department of Justice, now this is the DOJ, the U.S. Department of Justice cited Seattle's long-standing police consent decree, argued that banning the use of crowd control weapons could actually lead to more police use of force, leaving them only with more deadly weapons. Robart said the issue needed more discussion between the city and the Justice Department before the change went into effect. Ruling from the bench just before 9 p.m. Friday night, Robart said the temporary restraining order he granted would be very temporary. I urge you all to use it as an occasion to try to find out where it is we are and where it is we are going. I can't tell you today if blast balls are a good idea or a bad idea, but I know that sometime a long time ago, I approved them. And this was a judge talking. Robart has slapped down an attempt by Mayor Jenny Durkham and Police Chief Carmen Best earlier this week to block the new law. In that order, he criticized the legal approach the city had taken and said it had not attempted to meet the burden necessary to issue an injunction. But Robart granted the Justice Department's request, filed the day before a police department directive enforcing the ordinance was set to go into effect. Durkin pleaded on Friday for protesters to show restraint this weekend, as the Trump administration has deployed a team of federal agents to the Seattle area. So we got federal folk in Portland. Now we got federal folk in Seattle. So we're going to have federal folk all over the United States before long. We're going to have these, we got them being deployed to Chicago. So we're going to have federal folk everywhere before too long. You understand what I'm saying? Federal agents in Portland have been involved in hostile, violent clashes with demonstrators there in recent days. In a statement issued Saturday, Duncan spokesperson Stephanie Formis said the mayor believes changes are needed in Seattle Police's crowd management practices, policies, and training. But the mayor also believes the council's ordinance could conflict with the consent decree. Formis said city council's legislation imposed changes to the court-approved policies before an appropriate review could be done, which is why the mayor and chief raised these concerns with the court in the notice previously filed by the city. Chief Best said in a statement posted on the department's website Saturday that SPD officers would be carrying pepper spray and blast balls while policing expected protests over the weekend. She wrote she was disclosing that in a spirit of offering trust and full transparency, and also promised tear gas would not be used. Best is on the record opposing the ban, writing in a July 23rd letter to the council she would be reckless if she were to put officers into the street with the threat of violence looming, without the legal tools of protection allowed. The council legislation gives officers no ability to safely intercede to preserve property in the midst of a large violent crowd, she wrote. So this is all about protecting property. This is all about, they want police officers armed with tear gas, rubber bullets, and all of this kind of stuff for crowd control in order to protect property. Christina Fogg, an assistant U.S. attorney, argued on Friday that without blast balls, pepper spray, and other weapons banned by the council, police would have only batons, tasers, and handguns. Fogg added, "We are setting up a situation where there is a very increased likelihood of excessive force being used." So this is the argument. The argument is that if you take away or you ban their right, police officers, if you ban their right to use a non-lethal crowd control weapons like blast balls, rubber bullets, pepper spray, tear gas, and stuff like that, then you cause them to have to resort to using batons, tasers, and handguns against protesters who start out usually peaceful until the very police officers that we're talking about use these methods to aggravate the crowds and aggravate the protesters, and that's when it turns violent, because usually they are very peaceful until they get tear gassed or they get shot with rubber bullets, and that's when they usually turn violent. Okay, but again, the Department of Justice that doesn't have anything to say about what's going on with Breonna Taylor. The Department of Justice that didn't have anything to say about what was going on with George Floyd. All of these different scenarios and all of this different stuff that's going on with as far as police brutality and police killing unarmed black folks in the street. The same Justice Department that didn't have anything to say about that. Now all of a sudden they're speaking up about police officers being able to use these non-lethal weapons against protesters, when usually they are the ones that are inciting the violence. They are the ones that are causing the violence. And a lot of this is because they want to protect property. Now, when the chief of police and some other folks went to this judge, the judge told them that they didn't have enough illegal information and enough illegal, what was his word? Hold on a minute. That they didn't meet the legal burden necessary to issue an injunction. That's what this same judge said when the mayor and the chief went to the judge to block the new law, which is this law banning that they use non-lethal weapons against protesters. They didn't have, he said in that order, he criticized the legal approach the city had taken and said it had not attempted to meet the burden necessary to issue an injunction. But as soon as the Justice Department made a request, now all of a sudden, he gonna ban everything. As soon as the Trump Justice Department makes this request, now he's gonna ban, or he's gonna block the ban against these non-lethal weapons. So it just goes to show that the Trump administration is really heavily involved in everything that's going on as far as the protests and all of that is concerned. And they're really ready to clean up these streets and get folks back to business as usual and the status quo, and folks not raising up against police brutality and all the stuff that's going on, and white supremacy and all of that. So Trump is real heavily involved in this, and now he has his Justice Department real heavily involved in this, instead of the Justice Department looking at the stuff that they really need to be looking at. You know, investigating these hate crimes and all of that that are being committed against these black folks. Okay? So I just wanted to give you this information and let you know. And Seattle City Attorney Pete Holmes was in the awkward position of defending both sides of the argument. Earlier in the week, he represented Durkin and Best. That's the mayor and the chief. And if I'm not mistaken, I think both of them are black. You know, they love, and both of them, and if I'm not mistaken, I think both of them are black women. I know for a fact that the chief, Best, is a black woman. So they using all this, you know, we got the Texas chief of police, is a black woman, that Renee Hall and all this. So they really big on making these black women chief of police so that they can put them out, you know what I'm saying, put them out up front and put them out front so that they can speak, so they can try to say, well, we're not racist, and it's not racist because we have a black chief of police, we have a black mayor, or whatever the case may be. He represented Durkin and Best when they tried to block the law. On Friday, he represented the city council in attempting to preserve it. There is a validity enacted ordinance. I have a duty under the city charter to defend it, Holmes said Friday. Robert, that's the judge, had little patience for the argument. You were dancing on too many pinheads, Robert said. What I hear you saying tonight is now you want the political cover to say we're supporting the city council. Now you got to remember, this is the judge talking after he has been contacted by Trump's Department of Justice. Left to defend the city council's law was David Perez, attorney for Seattle's Community Police Commission. Perez accused the Justice Department under President Donald Trump of using the consent decree, which was put into place after the police department routinely engaged in excessive use of force and showed evidence of biased policing for its own political ends. I don't believe, Your Honor, that the DOJ's motivation here is to protect the consent decree, and that's really important. The DOJ has operated over the last 3 years to dilute the consent decree. Perez said the department has set up a false choice between guns and batons on one hand and pepper spray and blast balls on the other. He said they never objected when Seattle police were widely criticized for using excessive force to quell protests last month. Right now, you hear the DOJ talking about the possibility of excessive force, he said. Where was their concern when that excessive force was being shown day in and day out? It was like a video game, Your Honor. They made Capitol Hill look like Mosul or Baghdad. Another judge's prohibition against using crowd control weapons against peaceful protesters from a separate court case involving a lawsuit filed by the American Civil Liberties Union of Washington on behalf of Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County, and others remains in effect. That prohibition, however, does allow some flexibilities for officers to use the weapons in certain circumstances. So see, it all goes back to it's crowd control. They just want to get these people off the street. You understand what I'm saying? They just want to stop these protests, and they want to use whatever force they are being allowed to use as police officers to get these folks off the street. Why? Because these protesters are protesting white supremacy. As a whole, that's what they are protesting, white supremacy. And white supremacy's ability to use its enforcement arm, which is law enforcement, to police people, specifically the black community. So understand, Trump is deeply involved in all of this. Trump, now he got his DOJ deeply involved in all of this. He is deeply involved in all of this. That's the reason why he's sending federal agents all over the place to all of these different cities and all of these different states and all of this. They're not just going to be in Chicago. They're already in Portland. He'll probably send some to Seattle. They're already in other places. So Trump is heavily involved in this. Why? Because he wants to stop the protest. And why does he want to stop the protest? Because at the end of the day, the protest is about bringing an end to white supremacy in the United States. And doing it partly by bringing an end to law enforcement, which is the enforcement arm of white supremacy in the United States. You got to remember, you got to trace law enforcement back to its origins in the United States, which is slave patrols. And slave patrols were never set up to police white folk. Slave patrols were simply set up to police the black population, the slave population, the black population, to keep them under control, to regulate them. You understand what I'm saying? By any means necessary, to terrorize them, kill them, murder them, lynch them, whatever, to keep them under control. And to secure the property of white America. That's what slave patrols were created for. And that is the origin, that is the root of modern day law enforcement. We've already gone over that. So you got all of these folks doing all of this to protect law enforcement. You understand what I'm saying? To undergird law enforcement, to get in and uphold law enforcement as it stands today. The reason why they're doing that is because white supremacy counts on law enforcement. Law enforcement was created by white supremacy for white supremacy. Okay? So now you got the DOJ, the Department of Justice, now interfering in what's going on in different cities, in different states. So that's the reason why it's not going to be enough just to defund the police or whatever the case may be. We have really got to deal with, at a certain point, we have got to really deal with these DAs and these judges. Because they are put in place to do the same thing, to protect the police, while the police uphold and protect white supremacy. Okay? So, I just wanted to bring that in there, bring that information in there, let you know what all is going on all over the country. This is happening all over the country. We just see certain things happening in Portland, but this is happening all over the country. Trump is deeply involved in all of this. That's the reason why he's making it clear that he don't want these statues and these Confederate monuments and all of this kind of stuff touched. He's making it clear. And he's making it clear that even if he has to exercise his right as president to bring in all of these federal law enforcement agencies and all of that to bring order back into the streets. Now, he ain't talking about bringing order back into the streets. What he's talking about is returning everything to the status quo. Returning everything to the way it was before George Floyd. And before this uprising took place. Okay? So now let's move on to a little information about what's been going on with the NFAC over the weekend. Okay? Let's get into that. And of course, all of this information will be linked in the description box, so that, you guys can go to it, you can see it and read it for yourself. I just closed that tab. And I can tell you this much. Grandmaster Jay and the NFAC finally got what he wanted. He finally got some national attention from some mainstream media. Because there is an article wrote up in Fox News, foxnews.com, about the NFAC. You understand what I'm saying? Is it good news? Is it good exposure? Not necessarily, but for some people, exposure is exposure. They don't care whether it's necessarily good exposure or not, as long as it's exposure. So he finally got some. Now, here we go. Now, this is coming out of foxnews.com. This was published a couple of hours ago. I'm waiting for it to load all the way. Heavily armed militias meet in Louisville, avoiding violence as tensions flared. The two militias remained downtown for a couple of hours before dispersing. Now, this is a video that I want y'all to hear. And it's entitled 58 Nights of Protest, Violence in Portland. But this is something that I want y'all to hear. It's low. Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Let me read while we're waiting for that to load. Opposing militias met in downtown Louisville on Saturday, ending a tense standoff without any violence, according to authorities. The Louisville Metro Police Department claimed to have advance warning about two heavily armed militias that planned to protest on Saturday. The Three Percenter militia gathered in counter protest to the NFAC, an Atlanta-based group that had traveled to Louisville to demand justice for Breonna Taylor. And it goes into talking about how she was shot, how Breonna Taylor was shot. The 3% of militia claimed this showed up in response to NFAC and to aid police, according to the Louisville Courier General. Near Metro Hall, the two groups met, with police in riot gear and helicopters at the ready in case of violence. Now, I want to stop right there, because if y'all will remember, it was just a couple of days before NFAC was supposed to go to Louisville that Grandmaster Jay, the leader of NFAC, came on and he let it be known that he had been that the Boogaloo Boys had reached out to him and offered him an olive branch. And that they had said, no, we're not white supremacists. Don't bunch us up with all of these other folks over here and all of that. You know, we want to be there. We stand with you. We rock with you. You understand what I'm saying? We want to be there to offer you security and to help you. And he told them, well, you can't join, but you can come out. We're not saying that you can't come out, but you can come out and you can help with, quote unquote, help with security or whatever. But it's funny how the Boogaloo Boys never showed up. The Boogaloo Boys never showed up. We never saw anybody with the Hawaiian shirts on or anything like that. The Boogaloo Boys never showed up. But the Three Percenters did show up. And the Three Percenters showed up, letting it be known that they were opposing the NFAC. You understand what I'm saying? And that they were there to help the police and to be there to help the police keep everything under control and all of that. So they were there to assist the police and to be that extra security for the police. But what happened to the Boogaloo Boys? What happened to the Boogaloo Boys who were supposed to be there to help as far as the security for NFAC? What happened to the Boogaloo Boys? Why didn't the Boogaloo Boys show up? Because it's not like Grandmaster Jay told them that they didn't, that they couldn't show up, that he didn't want them there. It's not like he said, no, thank you, we don't need you, or whatever the case may be. He made it clear, even in the statement that he put out on YouTube, Instagram, or whatever, that they were welcome to come and they were welcome to help out, quote unquote, in whatever way. But they just couldn't join them. So how did it turn from the Boogaloo Boys to the Three Percenters? And we know that the Three Percenters are also a white supremacist organization. Okay? So, let's keep reading because I'm waiting for this to upload. And it ain't uploaded yet. Let's hold on. Let's see what we're going to get here. It still ain't uploaded. We were aware of these groups coming to protest, the LMPD told Fox News. As we do with all anticipated protest activity, LMPD makes an effort to reach out to organizers to get an understanding of what to expect during a particular protest event. LMPD personnel did reach out to organizers of this group planning to counter protests this weekend to get information for our planning purposes, but in no way did LMPD express support for any disruptive actions being taken by this group or any other. Police kept the sides apart while NFAC founder John Grandmaster J. Johnson delivered a speech calling for local and state officials to provide greater transparency about the investigation into Taylor's death. If you don't tell us nothing, we're going to think you ain't doing nothing, Johnson said. The Three Percenters militia, named for the supposed 3% of colonists who took up arms against the United Kingdom during the American Revolution, warned members to keep calm and don't fire unless fired upon. After Johnson's speech demanding answers within the next few weeks, the NFAC marched out of downtown. The police were relieved that no violence had occurred during the confrontation. Earlier in the day, however, an NFAC member's weapon went off, injuring 3 people, though none of the injuries were life-threatening. This is a tragic situation that could have been much worse. Louisville Metro Police Chief Robert Schroeder said in a news release, "I encourage anyone choosing to exercise their Second Amendment rights to do so responsibly." Police made 11 arrests for various offenses, including obstructing a roadway, interfering with a governmental operation, and fleeing and evading, but none for gunfire or the shootings. "We support everyone's right to peacefully protest," the LMPD said in a statement. "We will protect that right." So the 3%ers came out to answer and to counter protest and to be a support and a security for the police and to be a counter protest to NFAC. The 3%ers came out, and the police had them separate. So the 3%ers were over here. Then you got the police in riot gear in the middle of the 2 different militias, and you got the NFAC over here. And of course, the police already knew that both groups were coming. Okay? Now, and for some reason, this video refuses to load. But I want y'all to hear this because I want y'all to hear some of what they're saying that Trump is planning on doing as far as sending in all of these federal folk. You understand what I'm saying? Whether it be federal agents or whether it be military or whatever. So I want this video to load so that y'all can hear this. Because again, I don't care what anybody say. I'm gonna give y'all what's going on straight and unfiltered. That's the reason why it's called Undiluted TV, because I'm not finna dilute anything to satisfy anybody. I'm gonna tell y'all exactly what's going on.
Other protests are planned in major U.S. cities, including.
Okay, here we go. Let's get to it. This is the video that I wanted y'all to hear.
Destroying federal property. Local Democratic leaders want federal agents to leave, saying they're making the situation worse. But President Trump and the head of Customs and Border Protection say the feds need.
Trying to get back to the beginning of it. But it's just acting so foolish.
Property. Local Democratic leaders.
Hold on, I'm determined to make this thing load so y'all can hear this video, so y'all can hear some of the stuff that Trump is talking about. But again, now I want y'all to keep it in your mind. It was the Boogaloo Boys who supposedly reached out with this olive branch. No, we're not racist. We rock with you. We stand with you.
Planned in major U.S. cities, including those rallying for police officers. The group Back the Blue. They include speakers killed in the line of duty. Christina Coleman is live at our West Coast newsroom with more on all of this. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Eric. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Early this morning, violent protesters used that powered chainsaw to cut into the fence at the federal courthouse in downtown Portland. Federal agents.
I need it up here so I can.
Ended up using to clear the area. Weeks of protests have been happening in Portland and across the country.
Close that. I want it up here.
Starting after the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, demonstrators have been calling for justice and an end to police brutality.
We care about our children. We care about the next generation. The next generation after that. We don't want them walking down the street fearing anything.
Last night's protests in Portland started out peaceful but turned chaotic, and this has been the case many nights in Portland. This week, the feds charged 18 people for assault, arson, and destroying federal property. Local Democratic leaders want federal agents to leave, saying they're making the
It just keeps stopping.
Situation worse. But President Trump, the head of Customs and Border Protection, say need to be there because local authorities haven't stopped the violence. Protests are also happening in Louisville, Kentucky right now. 3 people were struck by gunfire this afternoon by someone who discharged their weapon at the protest. Now, police say everyone involved in this were part of the same militia group, and this shooting is under investigation. Demonstrators in Louisville have been calling for justice for the death of Breonna Taylor. The unarmed black woman was shot and killed by Louisville police in March. After police entered her apartment, they had a no-knock warrant for her address. Now, while mounting frustration and protests continue to sweep across this nation, Kentucky Republican Congressman James Comer says he supports the president's decision to send federal agents to cities struggling with violence.
Now listen to this.
We have to have law and order. I'm all about the First Amendment. I'm all about the peaceful assembly of people to protest. But when those protesters start vandalizing and destroying private property, then they become criminals, and they have to be treated as such. And I applaud the president for sending in federal troops.
And Seattle's police chief just released a statement this afternoon saying Seattle police will be carrying pepper spray and blast balls today, as allowed by the court's recent order. Last night, a federal judge blocked Seattle's new law that would have prohibited Seattle police from using these non-lethal weapons during the protests. Eric?
All right, Christina.
So you see, Trump really needs to be a part of this, because he claiming he wants to get back to law and order, and that the peaceful protest, these people turn out to be vandals and they destroying personal property and all of that kind of stuff. But so Trump, understand, Trump is going to be sending more and more federal troops into these cities, into these states, just overriding anything that the mayors and the governors want. He's going to be doing that. And you have to understand that the reason why all of this is going on is because this is an uprising against white supremacy. And it's an uprising against the police. And the police are the enforcement arm of white supremacy. You got to understand that. But again, you hear in this about the Louisville protest, and you hear about NFAC and the three percenters facing off or meeting, whatever the case may be, in Louisville yesterday. So let's go to another article and let's find out what really happened in Louisville yesterday. Let's find out how this thing really went on. Let's hear what Grandmaster Jay had to say. Let's find out what really went down in Louisville yesterday. All right, it'll be loading up in a minute. Yeah, it's coming. Because we got to see exactly what happened. You understand what I'm saying? We need to know exactly what happened. Because if you go on some of these different sites like Drop Dime and Fly on the Wall and maybe even Grandmaster Jay's Instagram or his YouTube or whatever, you're not going to get the whole story. Y'all need the whole story. I need my foundation of Black Americans to have the whole story. So that you need to know exactly what took place in Louisville yesterday. And how it will affect the Black community as a whole. Okay? Yeah, honey, this story done already reached the UK. And it's not necessarily a good thing that it's reached the UK. But you'll find out in a minute. Now, I want y'all to remember, just keep in your mind, it was the Boogaloo Boys that reached out and offered this so-called olive branch that Grandmaster Jay actually received and told them that even though they couldn't join, they was welcome to come out and offer whatever quote-unquote help they could as far as security is concerned. And then when the shit actually went down, no Boogaloo Boys anywhere to be seen, but the three percenters were there, and they were there to stand in opposition. All right, this is dailymail.com.co.uk. Black militia member accidentally shoots his comrades during face-off with three percenters in Louisville. As leader demands truth about Breonna Taylor's death in 4 weeks or will burn this motherfucker down. Now, those were his exact words. Those were Grandmaster Jay, the leader of NFAC. Those were his exact words. Either there's some truth and some information or something that's going to come out about Breonna Taylor's death in the next 4 weeks, or will burn this motherfucker down. Talking about Louisville, Kentucky. They'll burn it down. Okay? At least 3 people were wounded when a gun accidentally fired by black militia members in Louisville. Louisville police formed a barricade separating the NFAC and the three percenters. NFAC is a group of heavily armed black militia members based in Atlanta. They joined in Black Lives Matter protests demanding the arrest of cops linked to Breonna Taylor's death. They faced off against the three percenters, a far-right militia group that claimed to be providing security during Saturday's rally. So they will provide. So three percenters were supposed to be there to provide security and to help the police out to make sure that no violence jumped off. Right? NFAC leader John Grandmaster Jay Johnson delivered a fiery speech in which he gave officials running the investigation into Breonna Taylor's death an ultimatum. He called on members to return to Louisville in 4 weeks' time and burn this motherfucker down if the investigation was not complete, and to demand the truth. 5 people were arrested by Louisville police officers Saturday, but no violence was reported. Okay, first and foremost, we got NFAC folk, and the official story is that a member of the NFAC fell out from heat exhaustion. He just got overwhelmed from the heat and passed out. He or she or whatever just got overwhelmed from the heat and passed out. And when that person passed out, their firearm accidentally went off and shot 3 other NFAC members. So 3 NFAC members, and you'll see in this article, you'll see the pictures of the emergency folks going in, the EMS going in with the stretchers and all of this kind of stuff to pull out these 3 people that had been hit. I think it was one person was hit in the chest, one person was hit in the leg, and another person was hit, I believe, in the arm. Because this person fell out and their firearm discharged and hit 3 other people. So first of all, what does that say about these people in the NFAC that are supposed to be so highly trained? You understand what I'm saying? And supposed to have all of this training and all of this know-how and all of this responsibility when it comes to firearms. So why was this why was this individual who was a part of the NFAC, why was their firearm not on safety? So that even if they did pass out, because the firearm was on safety, it wouldn't discharge. But this firearm discharged and hit 3 other people. In a crowd now, it discharged in a crowd and hit 3 other NFAC members. That's the first thing. That's embarrassing as hell. That's embarrassing as hell that we go out there. We're supposed to be this black militia. You understand what I'm saying? Supposed to be trained, supposed to be all military and ex-military and all of this, and know all of this about firearms and all of this. And one of our members passes out in the heat. That's the first thing. Just become overwhelmed in the heat and passes out. And then because you don't know enough about your firearm, you don't have it on safety. So when you pass out, it starts discharging and it hits 3 others of your members. And I've seen this posted all over Facebook. I mean, all over YouTube. And the white folks are clowning you. The white folks are clowning you and laughing at you. You understand what I'm saying? And just clowning you because you went out there and made an ass out of yourself. Then on top of that, it took forever for the NFAC to finally march. And I have a video. I want to make sure that, and y'all understand that this video will be linked in the description box. I have a video of white folks that was out there from beginning to end. This video is 6 hours plus long because they were there from beginning to end. And the 3%ers took all of 15 minutes to mobilize, get their shit together, and get on the street. It took the NFAC, I don't know how long, to finally get on the street. And to finally start marching or formating or doing whatever it was that they were supposed to be doing. All right, now, here we go. Three people were injured in downtown Louisville when a member of an armed black militia group carrying semi-automatic weapons accidentally discharged a firearm as they marched to a demonstration. Well, he didn't actually fire. He didn't actually discharge it while they were marching. They were still in the park when the firearm discharged. When this person supposedly fell out from heat exhaustion, and because he had not properly taken care of his weapon, when he passed out, supposedly it discharged and hit 3 other NFAC members. Despite earlier reports that the shots were fired as a result of an argument between the group and a far-right organization gathered nearby, that would be the 3 percenters. It was later confirmed that a member of the Atlanta-based Not Fucking Around coalition had accidentally fired on other members as they assembled in Baxter Park. So that's where the NFAC was assembling. They were assembling in Baxter Park. They hadn't even started marching yet. And you ain't even started marching, but you already passing out from heat exhaustion. Without your weapon being on safety like it should be, and you pass out, your weapon discharges and hits 3 other members of your own group. An estimated 350 armed members of the group had gathered there before marching toward the main protest site in downtown Louisville, where about 50 members of the far-right militia group 3 percenters were also gathered. So we didn't have the 53 percenters. They figured that's all they needed. But again, where were the Boogaloo Boys? Just hours after the shooting, the leader of the NFAC vowed the group will return to Louisville to burn this motherfucker down if the investigation into the death of Breonna Taylor is not completed in 4 weeks' time. So in 4 weeks' time, you got Grandmaster Jay telling folks that the members of the NFAC will be back to burn Louisville, Kentucky down if the investigation of into Breonna Taylor's murder isn't completed. So you know what that statement did. That statement just put a bullseye and a target on every black person in Louisville. So if anything jumps off, if anything happens within this so-called 4-week time, you know who's going to be blamed for it. Not only will black people be blamed for it, but specifically the NFAC will be blamed for it. Because he publicly came out and said some shit like this. That if we don't see nothing in 4 weeks, we're going to burn this motherfucker down. Okay, so y'all, in 4 weeks, if we don't see nothing, if we don't see some police arrested and charged in 4 weeks, then we can expect Grandmaster Jay and the NAAC and the NFAC to go back down there and start the process of burning Louisville, Kentucky down. Not just members of the NFAC, because see, that's what it says. He vowed the group will return to Louisville. So if the group is going to return, that means him as well as all other members of the NFAC are going to go back to Louisville in a month's time and start the process of burning it down if the investigation into Breonna Taylor's death is not completed in 4 weeks. So they got a month. John Grandmaster Jay Johnson delivered a fiery speech from the steps of the Metro Hall on Saturday afternoon as he called the group to take action if the truth about Taylor's death was not released. He accused the investigation of looking to rework the crime scene to cover up what happened to the 26-year-old EMT, who died by police fire following a no-knock raid on her apartment on March 13. Following his speech, the members of the armed group were called on to take an oath. So here they go again with all of this bullshit oath taking and all of this kind of stuff. Like, what does that have to do with what happened to Breonna Taylor? to take an oath that they would protect black lives and to take action if Johnson's ultimatum was not met. So even if he don't show up, he's expecting the members of NFAC to go back to Louisville in 4 weeks and proceed to burn this motherfucker down. I would ask anyone who is not a member of the NFAC to turn and face them. Johnson said as he's called on those dressed in black to place the hand in the air. I will never allow the murder of another black man, woman, or child, whether the killer is white or black. There he go again, whether the killer is white or black. See, there he go again with that throwing shit in there to throw everything off. I am the NFAC for life, motherfucker. They cried after Johnson. So all of this, what is all this cussing supposed to prove? What is all this motherfucker and all of this cussing supposed to prove? Earlier Saturday, Baxter Park was the staging area for NFAC members before they were expected to march toward Jefferson Square Park near City Hall, where approximately 50 members of the 3 Percenters militia gathered. Louisville police formed a barricade to separate the two opposing camps, but no violence was reported. 5 people were arrested, however, for charges such as disorderly conduct and obstructing a highway. It has been a tension-filled day for all of us, said Deputy Chief Levita Chavez, despite the protests remaining peaceful. She said that they were aware of the ultimatum given by Johnson, but said they stood behind the right to peacefully protest. Authorities feared the worst when shots had been heard in Baxter Park earlier that day. However, the Louisville Metro Police Department later confirmed that the shooting was a result of a firearm that accidentally discharged. The 3 wounded victims were rushed to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Now here you go. This is your fearless leader, Grandmaster J.
They not doing nothing. But what they needed to understand, and I told them, perception is our reality. So whatever y'all show us, that's what we believe. So if you don't tell us nothing, we're going to think you ain't doing nothing. But if you is doing something, tell us what the fuck it is. And if it's some shit that we can handle, we might step back and give you a chance to do what the fuck you said you was gonna do. But if you don't, we'll burn this bitch to the ground.
So now, you got a bunch of black folks that have committed publicly. You understand what I'm saying? Publicly have committed to burning Louisville, Kentucky to the ground if their ultimatum is not met in 4 weeks. And they putting their fists all up in the air and all of that. To say that, yeah, you know, we'll come back in 4 weeks and we're going to burn this motherfucker down. You understand what I'm saying? Publicly now, with everything that Trump is doing, you understand what I'm saying? Knowing that the Trump administration, the DOJ, all of them are watching everything that's going on, you going to step out and you going to have all of these black people publicly agree to come back to Louisville, Kentucky in 4 weeks to burn this bitch down if your ultimatum about Breonna Taylor isn't met. Despite the shooting, NFAC members marched 5 blocks towards City Hall, where they stood several hundred feet from the Three Percenters militia. There, Johnson expressed his fury that the investigation into Taylor's death was expected to take a further 4 months. The militia leader said that he had recently spoken to Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who is running the investigation, and delivered him with an ultimatum that the group would take action if they didn't have a result within 4 weeks. I told him, you ain't got 4 months, Johnson said to the crowd, which included NFAC members and other protesters. He added that Cameron told him Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher had only handed over the case to him last week, and that there is believed to be a lot of information missing from the night of the raid on Taylor's apartment. There was no crime scene, Johnson told the group, according to WDRB. There was no report, there was no ballistics, there was no blood and toxicology. Matter of fact, there wasn't anything. There wasn't nothing. So when they gave it to the AG and he said, where's the case? The mayor said, I gave you enough. Do your job. And they thought that shit was going to go away, Johnson told the group. But you motherfuckers ain't stupid. So all of this cussing, I mean, what is all of this cussing and all of this loud and what's that supposed to prove? What's that supposed to mean? Because obviously nobody is scared of the NFAC. Because if anybody was scared of the NFAC, believe me, the 3 percenters would not have been out there. They wouldn't have showed up if they were really scared. He continued that he asked Cameron if the cops involved in Taylor's death would be arrested. So far, only one of them has been fired. I'm going to do what I need to do, Johnson claimed. Cameron answered. 4 weeks from today, we're going to come back here and we should have an answer, he said. According to WDRB, Cameron acknowledged that he spoke to Johnson but denied that he said the investigation would take 4 months. As was confirmed earlier this week, the conversation between Grandmaster Jay, Metro Police President David James, and the Attorney General was productive, the statement from Cameron read. The Attorney General reiterated his commitment to a thorough and independent investigation into the death of Miss Taylor, but he did not comment on any specifics related to the timeline of the investigation. The simultaneous demonstrations in Louisville by the NFAC and the right-wing Three Percenters organization took place a day after some 76 protesters were arrested on Friday. Police on Saturday sealed off several roads in the downtown area where the demonstrations were taking place. One of the 5 people arrested, a Black Lives Matter supporter, allegedly tried to burst through a police barricade that was set up to divide the two opposite camps. In recent weeks, scores of Black Lives Matter demonstrators have been demanding the arrest of the Louisville police officers involved in the fatal shooting of 26-year-old EMT Breonna Taylor. Once it gets to that point where it looks like the government is non-responsive to the will of the people, the Constitution says to form a militia to address the grievances of the people, Johnson said in his speech. I didn't write it, Johnson said of the Constitution. They, the founding fathers, wrote it. We just abide by it. So that's our destination. Because when it looks like the government is being indifferent to the people have the right to form themselves and arm themselves to ask questions. So now we got another 4 weeks that we're going to have to wait. So now the Not Fucking Around Coalition has gone to Louisville. You understand what I'm saying? The 3 percenters met them there. The police was aware of both organizations showing up. So we're going to see What we got to wait and see now is if this 4 weeks brings any kind of resolution whatsoever to what happened to Breonna Taylor. Because if it don't, you got to understand that publicly, Grandmaster Jay and the NFAC has said that they're going to go back in 4 weeks. And if they don't get what they want, they're going to burn that bitch down. So we got to see if in 4 weeks they go back and burn that bitch down. But this is your fearless leader standing up publicly announcing what he plans to do. Publicly announcing that. You understand what I'm saying? Like I said, it's obvious now that these white supremacist groups are not afraid of the NFAC. Because had they been afraid, they wouldn't have showed up. And yes, like I said, I have a video of them showing up. And they were there well ahead of time. It was the NFAC that was late. After NFAC members discharged guns and shot up their own people. So imagine how embarrassing that is. But you're not going to see that on these channels that just want to prop up and just want to promote what they think NFAC did, which is absolutely nothing. Except for to go and make an open threat against the city. That's what they did. They went and made an open threat against the city. With Trump and everybody else listening. So now, if anything jumps off, who's going to be targeted? Black folks. And not the black folks that went down there, but the black folks that live in Louisville, Kentucky. Because who's to say that that Grandmaster Jay and the NFAC is ever going to go back? But if anything jumps off, the black folks right there in Louisville, Kentucky are the ones that are going to be targeted. Why? Because Grandmaster Jay put it out publicly that we're going to burn this bitch down. And you say that while you got people in your own militia that don't know how to handle their guns. You got people in your own militia falling out. And you ain't even started marching yet. And they already falling out from heat exhaustion. And not properly securing their weapon so that when they fall out, it discharges and it strikes 3 of your own members. And now the white folks all over YouTube are laughing at you and calling you joke and calling you clowns. So I just wanted to bring y'all this information and let y'all know what was really going on. And let y'all know, here are the pictures, of course. I mean, they love putting this out here. That's the only reason why NFA got any of this mainstream media attention. Is because they made absolutely asses out of themselves by going out there, folks falling out before you even start marching. So you done been overcome with heat before you even start marching. And then on top of that, you didn't properly secure your weapon. So that when you fall out, it hits the ground, it starts discharging and firing at other people. So the 3%ers didn't have to do anything. The 3%ers didn't have to do a thing but stand where they were standing. You understand what I'm saying? And watch you make a fool out of yourself. Watch you make a public open threat against a whole city. And place further targets on the back of black folks. Didn't turn out to be as many folks as they thought it was going to be. It only was about 350, 400 people. They thought it was going to be anywhere. He said it was going to be anywhere between 5,000 and 6,000 people. So maybe some folks paid attention and decided maybe I need to back up. And remember, you had the 3%ers there supporting the police. So if anything had jumped off, and the 3%ers had decided that they wanted to quote unquote wage war against the NFAC because they had already made it clear that they were there on the side of the police, who do you think would have walked away unscathed? The 3%ers. But again, where were the Boogaloo boys that were supposed to be there to offer a form of security for NFAC? Where were they? Because they weren't in attendance. Y'all better pay attention and know who you're following. Y'all better pay attention when somebody is publicly setting you up for the fall. Because anybody that's about really doing anything, they're not going to broadcast out publicly how they're going to retaliate. But publicly he said that the NFAC was going to come back in 4 weeks. And if their ultimatum is not met, they're going to burn this bitch down. So 4 weeks from now, if nothing is done in the Breonna Taylor case, 4 weeks from now, if some white organization or a few white folks or a few white supremacists decide that they want to cover up and put on all black and go out and start all kind of violence and burning down stuff and vandalizing stuff and all of that, who do you think that's going to be blamed on? So y'all can find all of this information. Y'all can find the video that I'm telling you about. The video where this is a white dude, where he records the whole thing from start to finish. From the 3%ers showing up until the whole thing is over with. He records the whole thing. That video will be linked in the description box, as well as these articles. But you go on any channel that promotes the NFAC, and you won't see all of that. You won't see anything about the 3%ers. You won't see anything about the firearm that was negligently discharged, striking 3 other NFAC members. You won't see all of that. But again, this is coming from the organization that Grandmaster Jay tells us is so professional and full of ex-military people. And we know what we're doing. And now he has put it out there publicly that in 4 weeks, if we don't see what we want, black folks are coming back and burn this bitch down. That's what he said. Because who is the NFAC? All black. So he has put it out there. He has let the powers that be know that in 4 weeks, if we don't get what we want in the killing of Breonna Taylor, we gonna come back as black folks and burn this bitch down. So I just wanted to bring y'all the latest information, let y'all know what's going on, let y'all know that you know Trump and his DG and his the Department of Justice is heavily involved in this. They even having conversations with judges and all of this kind of stuff, so that more and more federal folks can be brought into these cities and all of that. You just need to know what's going on. You need to know what NFAC is really doing. You need to know what really happened Saturday. The whole scope of things that happened. And you need to know that now, based on his words, another target has been put on, another bullseye has been put on the back of black people. So, please make sure that you like this video. Make sure that you share this video. Share this information. Share this information on social media and off social media. And for all the folks that's going to come through, all the trolls and all the supporters of NFAC that's going to come through and going to have something nasty to say, and calling me bitches and calling me all, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. As long as folks are aware of what's going on. Because my responsibility is to make you aware of what's going on. My responsibility is to put this out here to you completely, totally, the whole scenario. Not just half of it, not just the part that us black folks want to see, but the whole story, so that you know what's really going on. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Please hit that bell notification so that you can be notified when we upload videos. But I just want you to be aware. You can follow whoever you want to follow. I could care less who you follow. You're grown folks. You have the right to follow whoever you want to follow. But I just want to make sure that you have all the information that you need when you make your decision to follow whoever it is you're going to follow. So y'all be safe. Y'all be smart. Be wise. Stay on code. And I'll talk to y'all when it's time to bring y'all some more information. Good evening.